2024 has been it's probably been the best year in horror since 2022. Like, and we're only halfway through. There is so much stuff that has come out this year that has just been frankly fucking fantastic. Um, there's no way I could watch them all. Like, I wish I could have watched every horror film released this year. Just with the amount of quality that's coming out at the moment, you just can't. There's so much stuff I wanted to see, but I just couldn't keep up. I wanted to see The Exorcism, the new Russell Crowe one. I fucking love Russell Crowe. But I'm seeing it next week. But I couldn't fit it in. I wanted to see Abigail. I wanted to see Infested. I wanted to see all of these before releasing this video, but I just have not had time to squish them in. Um, so, but caveat too, there are also some movies that I really want to see that I know have been released in other countries that have not been released in Australia. Like, there are some movies that have been talked about online, and I can't get them here. I can't, whether it's streaming or VOD or theaters, they are just not out yet. They are Arcadian, Inner Violent Nature, The More, and The Coffee Table, which I've heard is really good but super disturbing. These are all movies that I would love to have seen, but they're not. I can't get my hands on them in Australia without doing the old Jack Sparrow, which I'm not going to do. So, caveat going in, I haven't seen any of those movies. I wanted to see those movies, but I just can't get them here yet. Inner Violent Nature comes out in August here. So, my top 10 could change completely given the fact that I haven't seen those, and I've heard they're good, but currently, this is my top 5 horror films of 2024. I've also got, at the end of this video, my most anticipated films for the back half of 2024. So if you're keen for that, stick around. I'll list them all there. It's just a good year. It's a good year for horror. As always, the info for these movies is in the description, as is my full reviews of these movies. But let's stop fucking around and just get started. Number 5, Late Night with the Devil. Now, this is probably the most divisive film on this list. I fucking loved this movie. I'm a huge David Dastmalchian fan, and I'm so glad he finally got a leading role. He plays this amazing slimeball of a host in this, and you feel him loving every second. Like, it's well known that David Dastmalchian loves horror. Like, he's a horror nut. So I would love this to catapult him into being the lead in way more horror films. Because, like, he's a fucking horror nerd. Like, if you're watching this, you're likely a horror nerd. So is Dastmalchian. It's awesome. It's awesome that we get horror nerds cast in horror movies. I just loved it. This movie felt like I was watching a live TV event. That's how it felt to me. I mean, granted, I did watch it at the theaters, so there was like a bit of a live audience vibe, just like in the movie. That probably did add to it, but I really, really liked this film. I think they did as much as they could with the theme without sacrificing the technical ability. Like, they even shot in 4:3, which is like TV shooting, TV aspect ratio. It's just good. Like, it's Late Night with the Devil. It's a send up of a 70s, like the 70s era talk shows, back when everything was like a tasteful shade of beige or cream, and smoking was good for you. Dastmalchian plays Jack Del Roy, host of The Night Owls, which is like a really late night TV show. He does a bunch of variety shows. He has like psychics on and weird. Like, there's a fucking hilarious montage where it tells you about his show, and it just looks like a cluster. Those weird shows that you watch on YouTube where shit goes wrong. You're like, it's one of them. And he is in direct competition with Johnny Carson. Unfortunately for Jack, things are going poorly because his dear wife Madeline dies of terminal lung cancer, despite being probably the only person alive that didn't smoke back then. So, with his back against the wall, he decides to throw all his hopes into like a spooky Halloween special, complete with psychics, skeptics, and even a possessed girl named Lily. And it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well at all. It goes fucking poorly. Thankfully for us, it goes poorly. Ingrid Torelli, who plays Lily, does this. She does really great acting in this, and you don't know if she's actually creepy or just awkward on camera as a little girl. It works perfectly. It works perfectly. She had me shifting in my seat. She creeped me the fuck out. She scans for you. It feels like she's scanning for you in the audience when you're watching this. It's just this is almost a black comedy. Like, the black humor of it all, I found to be really great, which is no surprise. The writers and directors, the Cairns brothers, are sort of known for that brand of horror humor. I can see a lot of people not loving the ending to this movie, as it does get quite psychedelic and abstract, and there's some somewhat shitty visual effects. But this is just a fun fucking movie. I just had so much fun sitting there watching this movie. I think I haven't watched it at home yet because I know it's on Shudder now. I'll have to check it out because I think it might be one of the few movies on this list that actually benefits from you watching it at home because, you know, it would feel more realistic. Number 4, The Devil's Bath. Now, this is the only movie I haven't done its own review for, and that's because it only just got added to Shudder a few days ago, so I haven't been able to see it until then, so I haven't had the time to do a full review. Straight off the bat, though, this movie is fucking disgusting. This is a disgusting, disgusting film. This is a gross and disturbing movie. I can't tell you how many times I said, fuck me, during this film. Right? Like, it's a 2-hour film. I was constantly saying that. I almost turned this movie off multiple times as I was watching this. I've got a pretty strong stomach. You can see the fucking movies that I've watched in my back catalogue. I like to think I'm pretty tough when it comes to horror. I've got a pretty high tolerance, a strong stomach. I almost shut this off multiple times. And I should have known because I knew next to nothing going in. I just heard it's pretty good, and it was just added to Shudder. And I sat down to look at it, and in the start credits, it said, written and directed by Veronica Franz and Severn Fieler. I knew I was in trouble. Now, no, not because those names are metal as fuck, because they are. They're metal as fuck names. But these two little bundles of Austrian joy are the same people that wrote and directed Goodnight Mummy and The Lodge, both of which are so fucking disturbing. They're so fucked up and disturbing, and I think this might be the most fucked up and disturbing of all of them. They specialize in truly messed up slow burn horror films, and this is one of them. The Devil's Bath, it'll ruin your week. Honestly, watching this movie, it's really fucking depressing, but it's good. It's really good. You can't fault it. It's so good. Someone please check on these two, because what they put to paper, they cannot be okay. Like, they can't be okay. I love their movies, but fucking Christ, do not go into this movie if you struggle with like violence against animals, violence against kids, violence against the mentally ill. If you're squeamish about like torture or gore or mutilation, or you know, do not go into this film if any of that is a trigger for you, because it's all there and it's disgusting brutality. The Devil's Bath is set in 1750s Austria, as sweet but naive Agnes, played by Anja Plasch, moves into her new husband Wolf's house in the Austrian forest. It's like this rural community. Agnes struggles to fit in with their, like, frankly fucked rituals and lifestyles. And as she becomes more and more ostracized, her behavior gets more and more erratic. And then she gets more and more ostracized. You can see how that goes. And it just keeps building like that until it hits a fucking boiling point. And at that boiling point, it pretty much cemented itself as one of the most disturbing films I have ever seen in my entire life. This film is proper fucked. Now, the fact that this movie is one of the most disturbing movies I have seen, like, that's not the reason it landed on this list, right? I tend to not care too much about, like, shock value and disturbing films. Like, they don't just get on, I don't just automatically love them because they go, oh, wow, you spooked me or shocked me. I don't care. What I really like about this film is it explores in depth the treatment of the mentally ill women in the early modern period. So, like, right after the Middle Ages, just before the industrial ages. It's set in that period, and it was fucked. It was so fucked. Like, Agnes has no support. Laws don't protect her. There's no healthcare, mental or physical. Her family are just trying to shuffle her on. You know, like, she has no rights. It's just awful. It is 2 hours of basically this woman being mentally and socially and physically tortured, and it is such a tough watch. It's depressing, it's disturbing, everyone's awful to her, and it'll ruin your week, but fuck me if it isn't interesting. Like, this is such an interesting film, and it's a period that I don't know anything about. So everything they did, I was like, what? What do you? Oh, yuck! Like, you eat that shit, you know? Like, even little stuff like that, I was like, Jesus. It really depicted how awful some of the traditions and rituals around the time caused people to do awful things like suicide by proxy or flagellation because of spiritual healing. Like, this movie is based on a true case. I went and I inhaled the Wikipedia pages for this stuff. It is truly awful, and it did happen. It's about as close you're going to get to the Salem witch trials without a time machine. Like, you are just watching it in real time. It is truly, truly horrendous. And the darkest thing about it is the celebration people had back then in punishing people they perceived as different or wicked. It is excruciating, and it is eye-opening. I reckon if you watch this, it will likely be the toughest watch you've had this year. Maybe The Coffee Table. Once again, I haven't seen that, so I can't comment. But this is such a tough fucking watch. It's God, it's tough. But if you do like tragic historical horrors like The Witch or The Nightingale, this is another one in those veins, and it's more fucked up than both of those two. Oh God, this is a toughie. The Devil's Bath. It's on Shudder. Check it out if you have the stomach. Number 3, The First Omen. We are currently living in a golden age of horror prequels. A Quiet Place Day 1 came out and exceeded expectations. Alien Romulus is coming out soon. But the movie that kicked that all off, like people not just immediately shitting on horror prequels, was The First Omen. Like, this was the Omen prequel that was never meant to work. It has no right to be this good. I went in expecting a flaming pile of hot garbage, and what I got was a certified horror diamond and a movie that deserves to be put in the hallowed trophy display of The Omen. It's so fucking good. It's probably the best straight-up horror film to come out this year. Like, there's no art housey shit. It is just, this is a horror film. When you talk to people who don't watch horror about horror, this is the sort of shit they probably think it is. You know, they don't probably think of like Get Out or The Witch or whatever. They probably think of The First Omen. You know, it's got gore, it's got creepy music and crescendos and all that sort of shit. Creepy shit happens constantly. It's really, really good, and it fucking rules. It rules. The film takes place in 1971 in Rome when a young American nun named Margaret, played by Nell Tiger-Free, fucking great name. I'll say that every time I say it. Great name, Nell Tiger-Free. She sounds like a witch. She's arrived hoping to take her vows and become a nun after having a tough upbringing and finding the church. As Margaret starts to like get to know the orphan kids that the church looks after, she realizes that one of them, Carlita, is treated like a pariah by not only the other kids but like the nuns as well, and she's determined to find out why. As she explores further and further, shocking discovery after shocking discovery, there's religious power plays, there's some devilishly disturbing events. The First Omen, it fucking slaps. I loved this movie. I really did. I walked out of the cinemas going, wow, that's going to be in my top 10 horrors this year. And so far it stayed there, even though it came out in April. It's one of the strongest years in horror in recent memory, and this is still up there for me. That should tell you how good it is. It does what a good prequel does. It adds to the lore. It doesn't break it. It pays homage to the original, but it doesn't send it up. I think it goes harder than the original. Like, one of the things I loved about it is that it goes into Crazy Town straight away, and it fucking stays there. Director Akasha Stevenson and writer Ben Jacoby, they knew their source material well. They knew their vision. They took giant fucking swings. And they paid off for me. They paid off for me. I can't tell you the fucked up joy I got from one of the scenes, because the whole time it was happening, I was like, oh, they're not going to show this. They're not going to show this scene. And then they just, here's the camera, and it just goes whoop, and they show the whole fucking thing. And it's just the absolute balls. And apparently they sold the movie on that scene, which is fucking crazy to me. The sound design's good, the story's good, the acting's good. It's all fantastic. Yes, there are some plot holes, and there are no points that really like scared me. But it's fucking beautiful work. If you like no frills horror, check out The First Omen. It is supremely well worth your time. Number 2, Exhumer. Horror at its best pretty much wipes the floor with my nervous system, right? Like The Wailing, I Saw the Devil, Train to Busan. They all they get me in just the right. It's the right type of horror. You know when you watch a horror film and you're like, this is my type of horror? Lots of the Korean horrors do that for me, and I can't explain why. They have like this surgical insertion into my limbic system. They nail it. This movie, Exhumer, directed by Jang Jae-hoon and starring Korean fucking superstar Choi Min-sik, it slots into the vibe of The Wailing perfectly, even if it doesn't nail the execution, right? Like, The Wailing's a 10 out of 10 film. This is not a 10 out of 10. It's close, but it's not a 10 out of 10. It does have some problems, but I even so, the best parts of this film are some of the best parts of horror this year for me, 100%. Exhumer is a Korean occult folk horror. It follows a duo of shamans played by Kim Go-yoon and Lee Don-hyu. And they're hired by a wealthy Korean family now living in America to investigate why their child has been targeted by a supernatural entity. The shamans quickly deduce that the family is suffering from what's called a graves calling. It's basically when an ancestor in your family does not like their burial plot for some reason or another, and basically throws the mother of all tantrums. So the duo of shamans go, fuck, we need help. So they head back to Korea to find the burial plot and enlist a geomancer, Choi Min-sik, and the mortician, played by Yoo Hae-jin, to help them exhume the body, perform a ritual, and put it to rest finally to stop the grave calling. And you might guess this, but it doesn't go well. It goes terribly. It goes fucking terribly, which is good for us, but once again, shit for everyone involved. I think this movie is probably the movie that scared me the most this year. The First Omen didn't really scare me. Late Night with the Devil didn't scare me, although I found those two both enjoyable. This one did scare me. You know, The Devil's Bath disturbed me, but it didn't scare me. This scared the shit out of me. At least the first 2/3 of this movie, maybe 3/4, scared the shit out of me. Full on, creep out, full body goosebumps in some of the scenes. There is a magnificent ritual scene. There are creepy as hell ghost sounds. The cinematography is beautiful, but the landscape's fucked. Like, when you get to the gravesite for the first time, the vibes are off. The vibes are off. You can feel it. You're not an expert. You're not a geomancer, but you feel it instantly. You're like, don't do this. Please don't do this. It has such interesting lore that it builds on and builds on and builds on. And the occult mystery part of this had me hooked. I needed to know what happened. I was in straight away. This is a long film, right? Like most Korean horrors, it's a long film. I was in immediately. Immediately I was into this film. It does drop off in the last third when they show the big bad just a little too much. And I mean, it's my number two, and the last like quarter of this film I didn't love. That's how good the other three quarters of this film are, right? Like if they nailed that, this would have been probably would have been number one for me. But that last quarter just drops it off a bit. That being said, if you like The Wailing, this is worth your time just for that bit. Like I'm telling you, you will not suffer from seeing this film. The first three quarters are fucking masterful. Masterful. They're up there with The Wailing for me. Not enough people are talking about this film, and it scared the shit out of me. So if you can get your hands on it, I'm pretty sure it's on Shudder now. It's a fucking great film. It scared the shit out of me. Ex-humor. Go see it. Finally, my number one film of 2024 for horror so far is Brahma Yugam. If you have never watched Indian horror before, get your hands on this movie any way you can. I absolutely loved this film. I had no idea what I was in for. It's a Malayalam folk horror film, and it's set in the 17th century. It is a sinister epic of class warfare and folklore, and god damn do I love this movie. This movie is so good, and almost no one in the Western world is talking about it. It is so fucking good. Brahma Yugam follows court musician Thavan, played by Arjun Ashokan. Arjun Ashokan. He's fled after being captured as a slave. He has a run-in with this beautiful supernatural entity in the forest, and he flees and finds himself at a rundown manor. The lord of that manor, a man named Pody, played with flawless, and I mean flawless malice by Indian acting god, Mammootty. He basically tells Thevan that, yes, you can stay with me, only if you perform at my will. Thevan agrees, because he's like, fuck yeah, thank God I'm out of the forest. There's creepy shit in the forest. And we quickly learn that Thevan should have stayed in the forest. Pody is scary as fuck. He's scary as hell. He's sinister, he's evil, and he's definitely hiding something. I loved this movie. I loved it in all its black and white cinematic glory. Like, the cinematography in this film is flawless. It is masterful. It looks like an A24 film. The technical skill involved in making this movie is that high. Even the slow pans around Pody's decrepit manor are beautiful in a haunting way. Mammootty steals the show. He plays Pody like this drunk, power-hungry king, and he's wonderfully manipulative and sinister. The creature designs are top tier. The acting is top tier. The soundtrack bangs like a drum. The soundtrack is absolute fire. I've had it on repeat since I watched this movie. I think in January it came out. God, I love this movie. Age of Madness is my favorite. It's like they play it during the end credits. It's so good. Christo Xavier does the soundtrack. God damn is he good. If you like folk horror, do yourself a favor and check out Brahma Yugam. It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal, and not enough Westerns have seen it. I'm hoping someone like Shudder or Netflix buy it so it's accessible. God damn, I loved Brahma Yugam. So that's it. My top 5 horrors of 2024. I'm sure I've missed one. Whenever you make a list, there's always, after you record, you're like, fuck, I can't believe I forgot X. I'm sure there's one going to be like that. But currently, they're my top 5. That being said, I'm going to do a top 10 at the end of the year like I always do. It's anyone's game at the moment, because we have such strong horror movies coming out this year, right? Like, if you thought the first half of 2024 was stacked, the second half of 2024 it's just diamonds. It's all diamonds. So I'm hoping they all live up, because the hype is real. My number one most anticipated film of this year is Longlegs. It was written and directed by Osgood Perkins. It's an occult serial killer flick made by the same guy that did The Black Coat's Daughter. If you haven't seen The Black Coat's Daughter and you like occult films, go see The Black Coat's Daughter. It's one of my favourites. Oz Perkins is like a master at horror. I feel like he's going to nail Longlegs. Like, it's Nick Cage is in it. Micah Monroe is in it. It's like Seven mixed with the occult. It ticks every fucking box for me on paper. It is my number one most anticipated. Number two, I'm obsessed with the Aliens franchise. I have xenomorphs tattooed on my leg. I love them. It's Aliens Romulus. I cannot wait to see what Fede Alvarez does with this. He did such an amazing job with 2013's Evil Dead. He also nailed Don't Breathe. Like, I didn't love Don't Breathe, but I thought it was really, really good. And the Xenomorphs, best creature design of all time. I am hanging out. I am hanging out for Alien Romulus. I've had to force myself not to watch the trailers because I don't want to be spoiled for Alien Romulus. I am so fucking keen. I am so keen. And if we nail that one, right? Like, if that one gets nailed, we've had A Quiet Place, Day One, Alien Romulus, and The First Omen, all horror prequels. If Alien Romulus sticks the landing, they've all been amazing. That's fucking crazy. That no one had that on their bingo card for 2024. We've also got some really good Aussie horrors coming out. We've had You'll Never Find Me and Late Night with the Devil come out this year. So I'm hoping that the films Bird Eater and In the Room Where He Waits continue the trend of strong Aussie horror this year. Bird Eater is about a bucks party that goes wrong. And In the Room Where He Waits it's a psychological horror about a queer theatre actor who is stuck in a hotel room waiting for his father's funeral until he realises that it's haunted by someone or something. I'm hoping these two are good. I unfortunately missed the premiere of In the Room While He Waits, but I'll have to catch it at the movies when it gets a wider release. I'm hoping they're fucking good. I've heard Bird Eater is really good too. So if they are not on your radar, put them on your radar. Go support them because they're debut films and apparently they're absolute bangers. We've also got the Gorefest, Terrifier 3. I cannot wait for Terrifier 3. There's always a lot of love for like art house slow burny horrors. Even if you look through my list currently this year, most of them are slow burn horrors. I do love slow burn horrors. Sometimes though, I just need to see someone, cut in half with salt thrown on them. It's what we live for, right? It's horror. It's what we're here for. There is no one better than Art the Clown at doing that. There is no one better than Art the Clown. I am so fucking pumped for Terrifier 3. I love Terrifier 2. It has the most creative kills. All the Terrifier movies are delivery systems for gore. Terrifier 3, I'm hoping Terrifier 1 was okay. Terrifier 2 was really good. I'm hoping Terrifier 3 keeps that line, because if it's a banger, fuck, I might have to get an Art the Clown tattoo. I might have to. He's fucking great. Lastly, on my most anticipated is Oddity by Damien McCarthy. Same guy who made Caveat. I loved Caveat. It's an Irish folk horror film. If you haven't seen it, it's got the most fucked up bunny of all time in it. It's this weird little dog-eared rabbit toy. Disgusting toy. Great movie. Super tense. One of the scariest films I've seen on Shudder. Go see it now if you haven't seen it. He is coming out with a film called Oddity about a woman who uses her psychic powers and a really, really, really disturbing mannequin to try and solve her sister's murder. Damien, so far, hasn't put a foot wrong. I'm hoping this keeps track because I'm so keen for Oddity. I am so keen for Oddity. I cannot wait. He's so good. Any film that involves like a fucked up thing, the mannequin looks horrible. Go Google the mannequin. The Oddity mannequin. Yuck. So I'm hoping Oddity's good. I'm so keen. I love Damien. He's awesome. Oddity, put it on your list if you haven't heard of it. That's it. That's the video. Let me know in the comments your top horrors for 2024 so far. We're halfway through. Also, let me know what you're looking forward to. I can't be the only one looking forward to Longlegs. I know I'm not. Surely not. It's soon. Soon, guys. Soon. Drop them in the comments. I'm always looking for recommendations. And as always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week for another review. Peace.